Welcome back to the program. We have our final guests in the studio. To my immediate left is Miss Martina Duncan, Climate Change Focal Point, and to her left, Mr. John Stallmeyer, Director of Caribbean Permaculture Consultants. We're talking this morning about climate smart agriculture. Good morning. Welcome to you both.
Good morning. Thank you.
It is good to have you. All right. So, Martina, we're a little accustomed with you right now because you've been here before. So I'll go to Mr. Stallmeyer for a moment. Tell us a little bit more about yourself, sir.
Okay, my name is John Stallmeyer, yes, and I am a director of Caribbean Permaculture Consultants, and we teach permaculture and help implement permaculture designs in the Caribbean. And permaculture is a permanent culture. It means a sustainable culture. It also means an adaptable culture, because our environment is changing now, and our culture is going to have to change with it. And so we're teaching skills that our parents and grandparents used in order to produce food and all the other necessities of life using local resources. That's how permaculture is used in order to create communities that are can adapt to climate change.
Great. Is this basically, Ms. Duncan, the same thing as climate smart agriculture? Is it basically the same?
Yes, permaculture is a type of climate smart agriculture.
Okay, great. So what exactly is climate smart agriculture and how can it contribute to food security?
Okay, climate smart agriculture is basically agriculture best practices that you do activities that are good for the environment while practicing while growing your crops and planting food and also rearing animals.
Okay.
We use sustainable water practices, proper waste practices, composting, and so on. So all that is what comprises of climate smart agriculture, and it's good for food security because the more the sustainable you use your practice your agriculture, the better your food, the better the quality of the food, and the healthier it is.
Definitely. All right. So, Ms. Stallmeyer, I want to ask you basically the same thing too. How does it contribute? Because I'm sure you've been involved in this for a long time. How does it contribute to food security?
Okay, well, it's by starting to use the foods that we're more traditional accustomed to, so that we don't have to be importing so much food. The security is based on every community having enough food in the ground that if there's a hurricane, if there's a drought, they can be self-reliant. They can not have to be dependent on things coming from far away to be able to feed themselves. And then also teaching them how to collect their water and keep their water not only in tanks but to keep it in the soil. If we live like a forest, which means we recycle everything, means we have to cover up our soils with litter, with leaf litter, leaf litter and compost in order that it's protected from the sun and the rain. These are strategies that we use to make sure that the food is healthy. It's made out of natural materials. And
so is it? I want to make sure I get it clearly. It's something that is it is different to, in a sense, to the traditional form of agriculture, is it? Does this one employ technology in any way?
It employs technology in the sense of keeping very good data. We have lots of tools now for recording things that we can fine-tune the system as we go forward. So that's the way that it does also involve technology that is available now that wasn't available to our parents and grandparents. Yeah.
And of course, this is already being applied in Grenada.
Yes, we already have we have a pilot site for the same project on the Climate Smart Agriculture project in Mount Morris, and there are other farmers, local farmers, and other organizations that have already adopted climate smart agriculture practices and using permaculture design for their agriculture practices.
Right. So what are some of the things that they are required to do in order to ensure that they stay on the right path?
The course is this is the third time we're having this training course, this permaculture design course, and it's very comprehensive. It teaches them about what they need to do for a successful permaculture practice, how they design the plot based on what size of plot and so on they have, and how we can use it to the best of their advantage.
Right.
Yes, so you're using proper water, how you use the water, you keep the water in the soil, as Ms. Almeida just said, what kind of crops you use, how you design the land, to recycle everything.
Okay. All right, great. So, all right, let me come back to Mr. Stallmeyer now. So, what are you? You are the facilitator of
Yes.
this. What essentially are you telling the participants so that they understand what is required of them?
Well, it's a holistic way of looking at the world. It's basically a mindset that we're trying to impart. So in all the different aspects of the course, it's really a mind change. How are we connected to the environment? We are completely connected through the carbon cycle, through water, through the air. We are completely connected. And if we start to see ourselves as being completely connected, how we act differently in the environment, and how we become more resilient by recognizing the way that nature works and working with nature as opposed to fighting against nature. When we clear a piece of land, nature wants to put stuff back on it. So we look at in the way that nature would naturally do that, and we follow the same succession, as it's called, but with plants that are useful to humans.
Right. And okay, as you mentioned about nature, over the Christmas holidays, we had a lot of rain.
Yes.
And sometimes we might have a dry spell in the early part of the year.
Right, yes.
How would they be safeguarded if you're using this particular practice as opposed to the traditional aspect? How can they be sure that they're safeguarded, the crops and all that, in the event that you have either excessive rain or excessive heat?
Right. Well, as we were saying, collecting water in tanks, as many as you can in the community, and so you have water in storage, and then making sure that the soil is mulched so that it stays in the soil as well. We also have a thing called a contour drain or a swale that we will dig on the site where we're actually gardening, and that will also help hold water on the slope, not allow it to wash away the fertility and the nutrients when it rains. So yes, having water on your site extends the growing period into the dry spell, and collecting your rainwater in swales and in ponds means that you reduce flooding.
Okay, great. Does this mean, Ms. Duncan, like a retraining based on what Mr. Stallmeyer said? Does it mean a retraining of farmers because they would have been accustomed to one method of doing things?
Yes, actually the farmers now would learn. There are some farmers that already know some of these methods are actually really from traditional practices, but how you use them in a comprehensive way to get the best out of your plot. Right, so some farmers may know some of the practices already, and others we're training them so that they can implement it on their farms.
Okay, great. And what sort of things are, in terms of like a practical aspect, going back to Mount Morris, what exactly are they doing? Okay.
Well, basically, we're setting up a model farm, the Grenada Permaculture Institute, and on that farm we will have all the various practices being highlighted, and then we're also videotaping the whole process, so that we can create little learning tools that we can put on YouTube to teach, how to do aquaculture, how to dig to make a bed without digging, or to make a garden bed without digging, these different kinds of techniques that we are sharing.
Right. So you're in Grenada now. Do you travel to different parts of the Caribbean to do this? So what are some of the other places that are employing these methods as well?
Puerto Rico, we helped set up the Puerto Rico Permaculture Institute. We have taught in St. Lucia, in Jamaica, in Suriname, in Barbados. Barbados also has a permaculture institute that is more Caribbean-wide. So yes, it's been since 2007. We've been sharing permaculture around the region. Right,
and do you think that are you seeing the benefits in the different countries? When you do follow up, you're seeing the benefits to agriculture and the food security of the different countries?
Well, it's very. There hasn't been a big transformation yet. We're seeing little examples, but it's not really taken on, on a big scale yet. But plot by plot, yes, we can definitely see people getting, more self-reliant in the gardens.
Are there some challenges that farmers will still face when trying to employ these methods?
Well, farmers who have been dependent on industrial chemicals, for them it's a big leap. And so what we suggest is that you take 10% of your least productive land and you start to allow more biodiversity to come in to the system. And it's through creating biodiverse gardens that we get resilience. In nature, the more diversity you have in a system, the more resilient it is to shocks. And so that is the kind of agriculture that we're teaching. It's not only short crops, but it's medium-term crops and it's long-term crops,
Right.
all in the same system, depending on the size of your land.
Right.
In a homestead, you'll have a zone 1 and a zone 2 where you'll produce vegetables and fruits for the household. And then in a larger community or estate, you can do forestry, you can do animal husbandry, and so on.
Right, great. Ms. Duncan, is this something that you think would be introduced as part of the school curriculum anytime soon, if it's not there yet? Because we know that a lot of schools do agriculture, the 4-H and things like that. But just to ensure that we actually start from a younger age so that when they get to that stage, we already know, so we're more advanced by then.
Okay, well, we have been working with the 4-H in particular, actually, on climate smart agriculture practices. They have been involved in the training before.
Right.
We also have an agriculture component of a after-school activity for schools. So they're also going to get a little bit of that from that end.
Great. All right, anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up? I'll start with you, Mr. Stolmeyer.
Well, climate change is here, and we need to think about how we can be self-sufficient in our communities, in our villages, and in our neighborhoods. And so going back to the way our parents did things, using compost, having animals and plants in the same system, is a way that's going to make us prepared for the changes that are coming.
Great. Ms. Duncan?
Yes, it's important that we be open-minded to the different things that we need to do going forward to adapt to the impacts of climate change. It's not going to be easy sometimes, and sometimes it's a bit difficult, it might be a little costly, but we have to be open-minded in what and be willing to take on these new things, because at the end of the day, it's going to benefit all of us.
Definitely. Thank you so much for coming, both of you.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. We have been speaking with Ms. Martina Duncan. She's to my immediate left, Climate Change Focal Point. To her left, Mr. John Stolmeyer, Director of Caribbean Permaculture Consultants. And of course, we've been talking about climate smart agriculture, permaculture being one aspect of it, and the methods that can be employed. As they said, it's something like the traditional aspects, but it ensures that you keep as much data as possible so that we're able to, of course, have food security and things like that later on in life. It's just the methods that you employ to ensure that we have agriculture in a sustainable manner. We take a quick break. We'll be right back.